Respected guests, Assalamu alaikum, hello. First of all, I would like to say that I'm honored to actually present paper for Dr. Rizvi, who is a renowned analyst, writer, academic. The paper is Democracy and Media. Democracy and media are closely linked with each other. The deficit of one has negative implications for the other. It is natural that they reinforce with each other. However, like democracy, whose quality is crucial for sustaining it, the media cannot perform its role effectively without maintaining high professional standards and performing its critical role with responsibility and non-partisan disposition. This paper first examines the notion of democracy along with its various dimensions and then gets into the relationship between democracy and media and how and why they sync or float together. It also makes critical analysis of how the media has managed its hard-earned freedom against the backdrop of its rapid expansion since 2002. First, Dr. Rizvi talks about the imperatives of democracy. Democracy is the most cherished political system. Even dictatorial regimes adopt some semblance of democracy to strengthen their political legitimacy. The military governments selectively adopt the democratic course of action as a part of civilianization of military rule. The other approach is to condemn democracy as a Western implant and suggest ways and means to create an indigenous political order to genuinely involve the people in policymaking and enhance the representative credentials of governance and political management. No matter how one brands democracy or employs it to serve partisan interest, it is universally accepted as a synonym to popular sovereignty. The ultimate source of power and authority in a political system are the people who exercise this power through their representatives elected by an open, competitive, fair, and free electoral process. It is representative and participatory governance that reflects the aspirations of the people and responds to their concerns and problems. The minimalist notion of democracy focuses on representative democracy, open and competitive elections, and universal adult franchise. This is a limited notion of democracy. The maximalist concept of democracy views the holding of fair and free elections as the first, but not the only condition of democracy. It also includes constitutionalism, the rule of law, protection of individual rights and liberties against the threats from the government, powerful individuals and groups, religious and cultural pluralism, socio-economic justice, and independent judiciary. One of the main principles is the rule by majority, but this rule should not be turned into the tyranny of the majority by denying the legitimate rights and interests of the electoral minority. They should have enough opportunities of staying in the political mainstream so that they have a stake in the continuation of the political system. The government must exercise powers within the limits of the Constitution, and law and its actions can be challenged in the court of law on the pretext of crossing the limits set out by the Constitution and law. At times, individual rights and freedoms are denied by powerful individuals and groups and through intimidation and coercion. The democratic state must protect the rights of individuals against such excesses. Democracy cannot function smoothly if the citizens, while claiming their rights, forget about their obligations. Unless there is a widespread commitment to the principles and values of democracy and respect for constitutional rule, democracy will falter. Its quality would deteriorate. Democracy presupposes a democratic culture which involves human interaction with each other and society and the state. Unless the citizens imbibe the habits of religious and cultural tolerance, respect each other's rights, and take a stand against corruption, mismanagement, and excesses, democracy will not take strong roots. The people and the society are the best guarantee of working of a democratic political order. In order to evaluate the working of democracy, one has to draw a distinction between its formal structure and substance. The formal structure means the institutions and processes of democracy. It also means that the legal and institutional requirements of democracy have been fulfilled, i.e., a constitution, elections, elected parliament, basic rights of citizens written down in the constitution, and a formal structure of independent judiciary. The substance means how the institutions and processes actually work and how far the commitments made in the constitution and law are actually available to the citizenry. Most political systems fall between these two positions, minimalist or maximalist notion of democracy. The effort is to move towards a maximalist view of democracy by improving its quality. Thus, democracy should be viewed as a process. This is a movement from less to more democracy, minimalist to maximalist democracy. Depending how a country moves from the formal structure to the enriched substance of democracy. There can be reverses to the democratic process, or it can freeze at one point. The next section of the paper looks into the relationship between democracy and media. And this is what Dr. Rizvi says. One important criteria to judge democracy is to review the state of the media. No democracy is viewed worth anything if the media does not enjoy freedom within the framework of a democratic constitution to review the working of the government, keep the people informed about the domestic socio-political affairs and global environment, help them to make informal political choices, and serve as a channel of two-way communication between the people and the government. The media also contributes to articulation of political, social, and economic issues and their aggregation in broad categories of demands. It also mobilizes support for an issue or a cause. However, if democracy cannot exist with the free media, the latter also needs democracy to flourish and play its rightful role. There is a relationship of interdependence between democracy and media. Both need each other. Free media can exist only under democratic and constitutional rule that recognizes civil and political rights. When the democratic political order falters, the media finds it extremely difficult to sustain its freedom. Invariably, the non-democratic rulers attempt to control or suffocate media so as to sustain their personalized and authoritarian rule. It is in the media's interest that democracy and constitutionalism flourish in letter and spirit because it helps to boost its role and increase its clout in the society. When the media works towards strengthening democracy, it is actually securing its own future. The media must therefore join other pro-democracy elements in the society to cope with the threats to democracy and constitutional rule. Such threat can come from three major sources: the government, powerful individuals, and intolerant and violent groups. If the government exceeds its constitutional and legal limits, the media must keep the people informed of the excesses and restrain the governments to its legitimate role. At times, powerful individuals attempt to deny the rights of others. The media should expose such activities in order to discourage these tendencies. Similarly, the media must use its clout and the capacity for political mobilization to discourage religious and cultural intolerance in the society. It should promote the culture of tolerance, socio-political pluralism, and resolution of differences on societal issues through dialogue and accommodation. Democracy is a delicate system of government, and it can be destroyed by democratic means. For example, democracy is a rule by majority, but the tyranny of the majority over the electoral minority can undermine democracy. Similarly, the media has an obligation to democracy, the society, and the nation state. If the media does not perform its role with responsibility, it can weaken democracy, with all in turn weaken and undermine the media. Now, Dr. Rizvi now talks about the professionalism and responsibility required by the media, which is very, very crucial for his paper. The media's responsibility for securing democracy has increased in Pakistan for two major reasons. First, modern technology in the field of communications has expanded the role of the media manifold. It can reach more people in a short time and influence their political choices. Further, the availability of multiple sources of communication and information has made people more vulnerable. Second, Pakistan's democracy is not well established. It is passing through a transition, and thus it has limited and untested capacity for crisis management. The media has to be more cautious in reviewing, analyzing, and interpreting news and other information. Raw and unsubstantiated news and information without editorial caution can create unnecessary pressures on the nascent democracy, weakening the people's confidence in democratic institutions and processes. It is true that Pakistan's first expanding electronic media is also very young. However, this does not mean that it should not pay attention to the quality of its contents. The print and electronic media courses are being taught in many state and private universities, which are expected to give them useful academic background and training. This can be strengthened by on-the-job experience. A large number of the media people are finding it difficult to maintain non-partisan professional orientations. They appear to be swept away by the polarized political environment and cannot get out of a partisan political discourse. They need to rediscover professional objectivity and provide the people with basic information and multiple perspectives to enable them to be fully informed of different dimensions of the issues. It is not advisable to release half-baked information and news in a bid to be the first to release news without checking and rechecking the reliability of its sources and without processing it through a tough editorial control. A lot of information, news, and visuals come to the print and electronic media for onward transmission. There is a need to use professional editorial judgment to decide what will be released and in what manner, with a focus on their impact in the society. This becomes extremely important for the release of photographs and footage. For example, the live coverage of a terrorist attack has to be undertaken cautiously. The overexposure of a terrorist incident, while it is still unfolding, may inadvertently pass on some useful information to the terrorists and other criminals. The showing of dead and mutilated bodies from a terrorist incident is another important subject for editorial supervision. The repeated footage of dead or mutilated bodies or their parts can have highly injurious impact on children. Every media goes for the breaking news. This task should be undertaken with caution. An accident between a donkey cart and a tractor on a roadside does not qualify for the breaking news slot. The key question is the authenticity of the news. A media network will lose credibility if good number of its news items have to followed up with rectification or refutation. Take the example of the unconfirmed news issued by some private sector TV channels in mid-October 2010 about the government's decision to withdraw the notification of reinstatement of the judges removed by Pervez Musharraf. This became a self-fulfilling prophecy when the Chief Justice and all judges of the Supreme Court rushed to their office in the middle of the night and warned the government against taking such a step. Later, the Supreme Court declared such an action as high treason under Article 6 of the Constitution. This unchecked news nearly caused a clash between the Supreme Court and the federal government. Had the federal government not moved in quickly to reject the news, Pakistan's recently revived democracy would have been plunged into a crisis. Some TV anchors and large number of Urdu columnists present their views in highly personalized or partisan manner, occasionally bordering on propaganda. Their programs and columns are less knowledge-based and more belief and opinion-based. Some TV anchors often support or oppose a particular political party or leader in a persistent and often blatant manner which negates professional ethos of the media. The following themes are quite common in the opening and closing discourses and occasional comments of TV anchors and the talk shows, which are made either as a matter of policy or to raise controversies for getting a better rating for the program. And I will number them as the TV anchors presented. Number 1 is anti-Americanism and how Pakistan's self-respect and sovereignty are disregarded by the US and other Western countries. Number 2, a strong anti-PPP slant with an anti-Asif Ali Zardari focus. 3, sermons on high morality and Islam. The selective use of Islamic history to prove that the present rulers are very corrupt and extravagant. 4, a dismissive attitude towards the political leaders as being corrupt, egoist, who control the party from the top and do not pay taxes. 5, the present political arrangements are beyond rescue. 6, the hidden foreign hands of the Hindus, Jews, and Christians are hatching conspiracies against the Muslim world in general and Pakistan in particular. 7, direct and indirect support to or sympathy for Islamic orthodoxy and militancy, especially the Taliban. 8, and the last one, embroil the political leaders on a talk show into harsh and polemic exchanges and trading of charges and counter-charges. All these points come to this, that the media may support a cause relating to a societal welfare or a consensus-based issue. It may also help to build such a consensus. However, it should not appear to engage in positive or negative political propaganda with reference to a political party, leader, or political ideology. It should serve as forum for all kinds of views and ideas within the limits set out by the Constitution and the principles and spirit of democracy. It should be better if anchor persons study contemporary political history and especially how different political systems have been functioning for the past 50 to 60 years. This would help them to pursue their discourses in a more comparative context. This would also help them to better understand that some of the problems of governance and political management are not unique to Pakistan. These are similar to the problems faced by a large number of other countries. This is likely to tone down a highly pessimistic or alarmist or moralist view of what has been happening in Pakistan for some decades. It is a challenge for all of us to maintain a positive relationship between democracy and media. Both need each other because they are independent. However, the media needs to perform its task with greater professionalism and less sensationalism, avoid premature release of news, and inject more stability and soberness in political talk shows. Eventually, the media has helped the people to understand their problems. It has promoted the cause of democracy, but there is a lot of room for professionalism, knowledge-based presentations, and a realization that rights are always linked with responsibilities. Quality is no less important than ratings. Thank you very much.